buying and planning side. That's always been our core constituency, though about 5-6 years ago, we launched the Publishing Summit to focus on and complement our coverage of the media world. But you should know of a couple of things that are coming up that, at least as media sellers, you might want to attend. For instance, we've been talking a lot, and we'll be talking a lot today about video. We're doing our TV and Video Insider Summit on Montauk on October 20th and 23rd. That is all about data-driven video across the screens. In fact, we've been talking a lot about OTT since we've been here, and that we're doing an entire day, media buyers and planners and brands talking about their OTT strategy. But we're going to have brands there like Pepsi, like MassMutual, Electronic Arts, Sleep Number, GoDaddy. It's a good room to be in. The video mavens really enjoy this event, and especially the roundtables there really stand out as very intense. People really need to talk about how they're doing video very differently from the buy side. So if you're interested, go online and you'll see the details there and how to register. Also, we're doing one of the emerging categories of media buying that's really strong this year is the direct-to-consumer brands that have been emerging. And one of our most successful new shows this year has been the Direct-to-Consumer Brand Summit. And we're going to do that again. This is going to be in November on Kiawah Island. We're talking about that next stage of D2C development, moving from scaling up and customer acquisition into sustainable business models for them. And we have brands coming like Policy Genius, like Zenni Optical, like Wayfair, Clorox, Porch, Quip, Mizzen & Main, a whole bunch who are coming there. If you want to be among the new generation of D2Cs, that's the place to go. And again, just go online and you'll see details about that one on Kiawah Island. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about video, but also programmatic. But one of the things that I've been writing about since at least is what I call the magazine world's TV envy. Their persistent attempts to launch video extensions of their brands. And we have seen a lot of attempts over the years. I certainly have. I've written countless articles about these attempts to extend print brands into video. And most of them, frankly, have not worked. And I have to admit that I've been one of the skeptics until recently. We not only have seen a number of video franchises coming from the print world that have taken off, but we also see a greater receptiveness and distribution channels that are now much more conducive to that kind of extension. For instance, a couple that I've seen just from Condé Nast, who we'll be hearing from in a second. Vanity Fair, if those of you who haven't been seeing some of the stuff that Vanity Fair's been doing lately with celebrities, they've been doing celebrity lie detector tests, which are really fun, as well as celebrity major stars reviewing their own acting career and telling details about all the movies that they've been in. This is the ways in which we're starting to see legacy and print brands especially start moving into the video world. And that's the job of Catherine Friedrich, who is the EVP and General Manager of Operations at Condé Nast Entertainment. Her job is to take the 18 Condé Nast brands and move them into the video world. And she's going to tell us about what the plan is here and what her early learnings have been. She comes to Condé Nast after having been the Chief Business Officer for Riot, which was Verizon Media's branded content and AR/VR arm. And before that, CMO at Thrive Global. Please welcome Catherine Friedrich.
Thank you for that setup. That is a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm Catherine Friedrich, as you heard. I'm the General Manager of Operations. I'm relatively new to this role. I've been only at Condé Nast now for about almost 3 months. But I was actually at Condé Nast 20 years ago, and then have spent a long period of time where I explored digital and other things. I was at Google and YouTube for 10 years as well. So the transition from when I was at Condé Nast back in 2000 versus now has been extraordinary, not only from the company itself, but also from the industry. 20 years ago, you could be classified as a print brand, you could be classified as a radio, you could be classified as TV, and that could be your business. But over the last 20 years, you can't really be in any one of those businesses. Everybody's experimenting in all walks of life when it comes to content, when it comes to audience development. And so now we're in an even more competitive time where it's hard to just label yourself as one thing and not expand beyond that. So what I want to talk about is, how do we keep these iconic brands of Condé Nast relevant? How do we keep them modern? How do we do this in this constant evolution of change where audiences are everywhere? And you can't be everywhere. It's really hard. Maybe you can if you have really large budgets, but I would imagine that most of us don't have the budgets to be everywhere and to be everything to everyone. So we're modernizing through video. You may not know this, but over the last 8 years, 5 to 8 years, we've been amassing some tremendous success using video. We have 17 brands globally. We have the ability to make 4,000, and we are making 4,000 plus videos every year. And we're getting over 1 billion viewers a month. These are astounding numbers, but it's funny that with as big as they are, Condé Nast is not necessarily, video isn't the first thing you think about when you think of Condé Nast. First you think of the magazines, and we're trying to create brands, not magazines anymore. So how do we move into this multimedia entertainment world? It's through some of these big brands that you see here and adapting them, changing them, modernizing them. You think of some of them, these are the epitome of fashion, style, culture, lifestyle, even food with Bon Appetit. So how does this resonate with people? We know we've had this long history, but is that enough? Can we rest on those laurels, or what do we have to do to modernize? As I said, it's going to be video. Video is how we engage with our customers now. People want to see more than just text in a magazine. How can we build those connections? But when we started to think about video, we had to think about how we expand our video. So the first step, and probably everyone's first step, is to develop their owned and operated websites. Great. We did that. It worked. It was great. But it's really also hard to bring people into a destination anymore. That audience development side of it is challenging. And it makes it incredibly difficult to build your audiences because the consumers don't go to destinations anymore. They will, but they're also going everywhere else. And so if you want your content to be relevant and if you want your video to be seen, you need to figure out where else you should put it. We are in all of these places at this point, but that's not where we started. And I think if you start out thinking, oh my God, we got to be everywhere, you'll never get there. So you have to pick and choose. You have to pick where you think will make the most sense. We actually started to really expand onto YouTube and these massive destinations. We tried them all out, and actually we found that YouTube was a good place for us to go because we could also monetize it there, which was really important for the development. We needed to keep that flywheel going where we had money coming in so we could develop more content. But it's not easy. It's not easy to just say, hey, what worked and what's working for us in our O&O is going to work for us on YouTube. It's a totally different platform. People are there for a totally different reason. They are consuming content in a totally different way. So we had to figure out how we adopt our IP. And what we're doing is connecting with audiences, and we never wanted to forget that. We wanted to be audience first, and we want to maximize the experience of the audience on that platform. So when you look at some of these brands that we have, like a GQ, we love storytelling. GQ tells great stories, and we're constantly thinking, how do we tell a better story or tell an extension of a story that we saw in a print version? And we knew we wanted to tell this story here about Last Chance U. That's the name of a very hot Netflix series that we created. We're in the 5th season now. And it was one of the most binged-watched series on Netflix last year. It developed out of an article that was written in the magazine about a Mississippi junior college and its football team going for the 3rd-year division title. What we thought was interesting about this story and why we wanted to bring it to life through video was because nobody hears about the trials and tribulations of those athletes. You hear about D1 athletes, you hear about the NFL. D1 athletes get exposure because they're on TV every week. Those schools are there. Whereas in a junior college, these kids are fighting for their lives almost every week. They're getting beat up because their goal is to get to a D1 college. Their goal is to be seen on television. So this is their last chance to make it big. So they are ferociously fighting every week to get the attention of their coaches and to get the attention of scouts. Awesome story to be told, but it's a documentary. It needed to be told in long form. You couldn't tell it on YouTube. So that's why we approached Netflix with the opportunity to tell this story there. So we had to make a tough call. This was a story we wanted to tell, but match it to the appropriate platform to tell it, where we knew it would resonate with an audience. On the flip side, we have a show called Most Expensivest. This is a little more irreverent, it's a little more fun, not as hard-hitting and serious as Last Chance U. It stars 2 Chainz as our host, which I'm sure you're all fans of his, and he really is an outstanding host. He goes and looks at the 1%er opportunities of things to buy. So for instance, we have him exploring and tasting a $10,000 bottle of whiskey, a $600 cup of coffee. It's things that most normal people of normal means can't do, and he's giving you a little bit of access, but doing it in such a fun way that it's compelling and interesting for the audience. That didn't feel like a Netflix show. This felt like a Viceland show. And so we approached Viceland, and so we're, again, mapping the story, the ideas, to the platform that we're putting them on. When we think about extensions and how we're building these brands into video, it's not always easy to just take something right out of the pages of our magazines and do a video on them. It doesn't always make sense that way. So what else can we do? Well, considering we were looking at YouTube in the beginning, what was resonating on YouTube? What were our audiences seeing on YouTube? They were seeing personalities. They like to connect through personality. So how did we want to do that through Condé Nast? Well, it turns out the best personalities for our shows were right in our building. The editors of some of the magazines have such tremendous on-stage presence and in-video presence that it made sense. So, obviously we have a celebrity in Anna Wintour. So you could say, well, that's unfair. She's obviously already famous. But Claire is not famous at all. She was an editor in the test kitchen. She loved what she did. She wrote for the magazine of Bon Appetit. She tested the recipes. She was so relatable, so easy to get to know. Not famous, no audience. And we started doing some small tests with her. We started putting her into some of our O&O shows. And then eventually we launched a big show called Gourmet Makes, where she's the star. And this show has been a runway success. People find her relatable. She is a personality that people can connect with. And that's what the platform that we were using her for was all about. So now she has this massive following and is constantly, the feedback we get from her and from, we have another editor, Brad, who's now also doing shows for Bon Appetit. And it's one of our ways that we're pulling homegrown talent out of our staff and putting them in front of an audience. You don't have to be an A-list superstar to make a connection with people. When we think about brand extensions, you can't do it without thinking about the format of the extension. Again, this is a lot of learning from what platform we want to be on and what different formats work on different platforms without losing too much sight onto what we do with our brands and what our brands really stand for. So Vogue has a lot of editorial around, or they do a lot of interviews. And so we wanted to think about how we could take that interview style format and not just put like 2 chairs out and video people. That's not interesting. How do we take an interesting spin on the interview format? And so one of our creative developers came up with a series called 73 Questions. We do take A-list celebrities, but we ask them in a one-shot take 73 questions with a handheld camera. Simple format, personality. Obviously, we're leveraging some of the celebrities that come in through Vogue, but again, it's one of those ways that we're taking an extension of Vogue, not actually what was there, and turning it into new IP for the brand. Glamour also has a show that we're leveraging, again, extensions, making the brand flex a little bit into territory where they haven't been. We did our homework, saw that React videos on YouTube were really resonating. I think you probably know what they are. Kids react to something, elders react to something, and they show them videos and then see what they think about them. Well, we did the same thing here with Glamour. We looked at a lot of different songs, or people singing cover songs on YouTube. We found this woman, Davina, who loved Pink. and was singing a lot of Pink songs. So we brought in Pink, and we had her watch Davina sing her songs. Pink was like, this blew her away. This woman's really incredible. So incredible that just recently she pulled Davina into her tour in the Netherlands, and Davina opened up for her while on tour. So it's taking formats that have, we see resonating elsewhere, see how we can apply them to our brands, and then ultimately, hopefully, they turn into big successes. So the goal, deepen the relationship with the audience. That's the point of all the video that we're doing. But the real goal is fandom. When you see people walking down the street with logos splashed across their chest or across their ass, you're like, wow, they must really love that brand if they're going to do a lot of that free advertising for them. We want that. We want those brand ambassadors. We want people to say, God, I love this so much that I'm willing to slap a logo on my t-shirt or put a sticker on my computer. How do we do that? We're exploring new ways. Direct to consumer. Make it tangible. Make them feel it. Make them see it. We knew that people loved Allure's Best of Beauty series. Every year, the products that were on the list, Best of Beauty, sold out in stores. And we got rave reviews from the stores who were like, thank you for putting this product on the list, it's sold out. We also got some negative reviews from consumers who are like, God, you put it on the list and now it's sold out. So how do we bridge that connection? Instead of sending people to a different avenue to explore products that we were supportive of, we're now doing a monthly subscription service for beauty products. This subscription service has just grown exponentially over the last couple years to the point where we're in every state and we're doing over 100,000 subscriptions. It's incredible. But of course, that's a natural extension for Allure. It's a beauty brand. Why wouldn't we be doing this? Why wouldn't we be bringing our products, or not our products, but the best of the products out there that we write about to our audiences? For GQ, we didn't want to leave our male counterparts out, so we launched a great stuff box for GQ. This doesn't come out monthly, but we saw over a 270% increase in subscriptions for the GQ stuff box. This is incredible, and the other part we wanted to do, because GQ is that kind of a brand that wants to not only show you the fashion, but help you explore fashion for yourself, we launched a social first series for GQ on unboxing. So now, not only can you receive the box, you also can now find out how to style everything that's in the box. So a great natural extension for GQ. The last in-person extension I want to talk about, or consumer extension, is this Hot 10. When I talked about Claire before, who was one of our test kitchen editors, she and Brad have become so famous amongst their followers that the fans wanted more of her. They wanted more of Brad. We now have a full weekend coming up in October that celebrates Brad and Claire. They do cooking. The fans come in. They do cooking with them. They do lectures with them. They do different meet and greets with them. We basically turn these two test kitchen editors into celebrities. And that's great for us, and it's great for our fans. So we're not trying to do something that our fans don't want. We actually want to try to do more of what they want and bring them closer to us as a brand as a result. So our big mantra is don't be afraid to explore some of these different areas. Test and learn. Build a brand extension. Come up with something innovative and creative that inspires people to want to spend more time with you. And so just this past month, on September 10th, we launched GQ Sports. This was the culmination of understanding where the white space is for GQ. GQ is a pretty old brand. It's doing really well, still has a tremendous amount of recognition. But what's next? Well, when we started to see the landscape of who now was setting culture, fashion, style, it was athletes. Specifically, actually, the NBA imposed a dress code. They have now an enforced dress code for some of the players coming in and out of the stadiums or in and out of the arenas. And that has now become the runway for fashion. When they get out of their cars, as they enter the stadium, people see like what they're wearing, what sneakers they have on, what their music, their phone that they're wearing, that they have in their hand. They are now setting the trends. They are now what people look up to and what kids look up to and defining what fashion means. So we launched this knowing that athletes were such an important part of fashion, culture, and lifestyle now. So it seems natural, but it's easy to say that in hindsight, not so easy when you're going through it in the first place. So I have a little clip here of some of the content that we launched on GQ Sports, so I wanted to give you a quick look.
Inside the lives of athletes like me.
I let my clothes and my beard do the talking.
Oh, snap.
Getting pumped, getting ready.
I got a big cross on my back. It took 10 hours just in one go.
This one hurt, so I didn't finish it.
My mom hates it every time I get one.
What's up, guys?
Collecting shoes started when I was in high school.
I broke the freshman scoring record in the NCAA tournament in these.
How many?
39.
These might be my favorite, though. When it's your birthday, you can wear stuff like this. What up, GQ?
This is my favorite bag. I'm a big candle guy.
Gotta have my cufflinks.
My essential things aren't exciting.
Golf, absolutely an essential.
Never leave home without it.
Hey, Mom, I'm calling you from work.
You're gonna start down, right?
Where I have a new assignment I want to tell you about.
Circle, circle.
They're going to have professional hockey players shoot a slap shot at me.
Flip off that bastard trying to score in your fucking goal.
I don't think that's a good idea.
I'm here with Chris Archer, the Tampa Bay Rays. He's going to teach me how to get my wiffle ball game on point.
It works extremely well with a baseball. Let's see how it goes with the wiffle ball.
Ow!
GQ, you brought this out of me.
That's just a recipe for greatness.
So you can see through the video, it's not anything that was necessarily covered in GQ before, but it's not so far afield, and it doesn't seem like that far of a stretch. And so we're constantly trying to innovate and explore new ways that we can take some of these brands, explore some of that white space, and find out what still feels on brand, but resonates now and capturing some of the trends that we see. And so that's what we're trying to do, test and learn. Explore things, pivot quickly, stay nimble, keep moving. And the lessons we learned from the GQ Sports launch was, number one, do your homework on where the audience is underserved. And use so much data now to tell you what that is, to tell you who your audience is, tell you what they like. And when you see something blip, don't be afraid to test it, which is what we did with the sports brand. Create content that authentically represents the brand. Again, you saw it. You saw the style. You saw the fashion. So all the same adjectives that you would use to describe GQ comes up in GQ Sports, but it's done in its own unique way. What I didn't touch on yet is the soft launch. We actually launched a lot of that content prior to putting it onto the GQ channel, the sports channel. We wanted to test it out. We wanted to see what resonated, because when we went big with the launch, we wanted that grand opening to be splashy and know what the hits were. So we tested different formats. We tested different celebrities. We actually do a whole scale check on celebrities, because you would think that some of those athletes would be popular no matter what, and that's not always true. It's about what's resonating with the audience now. And the other just tidbit is that not all of the shows are driven by celebrities or athletes. You saw on Average Joe, that was one of our senior editors for GQ, who's now one of the biggest stars on the channel. So it's, again, using that homegrown talent, using that personality and what we have to work with inside our own walls. So now what do we do? Where do we go from here? What's the next step for Condé Nast? The way I think about things and the way I'm looking forward, this is the three buckets that I look at. I think about audiences, I think about content, and I think about just the general business and the business landscape. From an audience perspective, what I'm seeing now is that they are building connections to the content through the talent. This is that personality-driven content that I'm talking about. When you see someone like Claire, getting millions of views on her videos every time we upload, that's pretty special, because she didn't have that celebrity status, and it wasn't like we were building off of something that was already there. This was built from nothing, but she's personable, relatable. People want to see more of that. I also see audiences leaning into social causes and leaning into brands with social causes. Now, I don't know where Condé Nast fits into this yet. We haven't quite gotten there, but or at least we haven't, kind of put that out there. But the CPG brands do it a lot. You see CPG, it's resonating there. Retail are leaning into social causes, and that's a reason for consumers to choose them, because it feels like there's some connection. Micro communities is another thing. Now, if you have a niche topic, if you're interested in underwater basket weaving in Arizona, you might only find one other person interested in that in this whole country. But you might find hundreds, thousands of people interested in another country, and now the web is bringing us all together. The content is now global, and communities are now global. So you can find a community that fits you under a niche topic because you have access to them now. And lastly, on the audience side, they want what they want when they want it. So this is the toughest challenge for us, is how do we serve all of our audiences in all of the places they want to be in the way that they want to engage with us. The next bucket I look at is content. Like, what's going on in the content world? Well, content is now global. So when you think about the big platforms that we're distributing our content on, we're thinking about, YouTube, Facebook, Snap, they're in every market. And so how does that translate into the business that we're doing? Do we need to start thinking about translation services? Do we need to start thinking about dubbing? Do we need to start thinking about, launching new things in new countries to serve local markets in local language? These are all big topics of conversation in the walls of Condé Nast, and I think they're big topics everywhere. Content is timeless. The web has provided the opportunity for things to live on in perpetuity. And so the thing to think about here is what we make today can work really hard for us tomorrow. We're now launching, we do about 4,000 videos a year, but think about the library of content that we have amassed over the last 5 years in doing that. How can we be smart about what we do now so that we can get a lifetime value out of it? So, try not to make short-term decisions when we know this will have a long-term effect on our business. This is something that I contemplate all the time. Show association is higher than network association. I like This Is Us as a show on TV. I can't tell you if it's on NBC or ABC. Does it matter? I don't know. So how do we think about that as a portfolio company? Do we think about it as shows? Do we think about it as brands? Do we think about it as kind of an umbrella company? So these are all different marketing decisions we'll need to make in the future. Feedback is instant. This can be really demoralizing for some of the creative and art directors out there, because right away whether people love it or hate it. And that's great. I think we should all embrace every bit of that feedback and learn how to not only optimize all of the technical things that we're optimizing, but how do we optimize content as a result of the feedback? I've talked about this a little bit already. Distribution replaces destinations. This is about audiences not going to destinations as much as they used to. They are everywhere. So how do we capture them everywhere? On the business side, some of the things that I think about from the landscape are, what are those new metrics? We're redefining them, I feel like, every day. So what's that going to look like? New economics for production, because not everything requires the same level of production style. Every platform is different. Every place you put your videos are different, and video isn't necessarily cheap. So what does that look like? I think everyone will be in the DTC business because advertising alone can't help you get to where you want to be. So those are some of the things I think about just generally where we're going. And I wanted to leave you with 5 takeaways. So number 1, video is the key to the future. It helps people modernize. It helps build those connections with audiences you're looking for. Number 2, authenticity rules the day. Don't try to be something you're not. Be authentic to yourself, but also try to adopt the to the platform and the place where you're distributing your content and your video. Number 3, lean into what sets you apart. Your unique value is what is going to attract the audience. As you grow from legacy publisher to multimedia experiences, you still have to stay true to your core while expanding it and helping the audiences grow with you. Don't be afraid to try something new. You've got to keep people inspired. You've got to keep, the plane flying. Try it out, test and learn, fail and fail fast. Put it out there and see what happens, because you're going to get data. You're going to get that instant feedback. And then lastly, the future is wide open. There are no roads where we are going. There's no playbook. We are building the playbook as we all sit here today. No one has the answer on what that metric is that we're going to use to evaluate our business, because every platform had its own metric, and now we need to figure out how to combine it. Everyone knows how to make content scalable and custom and profitable all at the same time. Everybody's trying to figure that out now. So what I'm excited to be here today at the Media Post Summit is to see a room full of people who are all trying to figure this out together, and that really gets me jazzed. So thank you for having me.
We have time for questions?
Hi, I'm Casey from Video Elephant. I'm curious when it comes to syndicating content across different platforms and things like that. Obviously, there's a revenue opportunity, others there's not. For the non-rev opportunities, what is the decision-making process around this is valuable to us? These are, is it audience? Is it, I don't want to fill in any,
Yeah, no, that's an awesome question. I think some of it is marketing. Some of it is audience building. Even on some of the platforms where, I think some of the larger platforms will monetize content for you. So yes, there's rev shares that you have to think about, or different, there's money opportunities, might be just not as big. But when we're looking at it as a full ecosystem and how it plays into the ecosystem, is it a platform or is it a place where we think there's a tremendous audience that helps us grow our audience and draw it into our ecosystem? If that is the case, then it's worth it. Obviously, it's only worth it if we have the money to spend to do it. But it's when we think about how we cut our content and how we shoot our content, for video in particular, we're hoping to make some of those decisions further up in that funnel, so we can say, we want to test this out on these additional platforms. How do we just tweak it for those additional platforms so that we can test the marketing value of it or the audience development value of it? So, it's not an easy answer. It's a kind of a complex math problem, but we're trying to put some metrics around it to figure out what the value is, not just the money value. Yeah.
Hi, Brian with Rolling Stone. As you create your original video, what's your approach to either partner integration from a branded content standpoint, editorial ownership, or full-on endorsement product integrations, or whatever that might be? We're looking at doing a lot of the same things, and it's always just interesting to see how other partners approach ad revenue relative to editorial video series.
Yeah, I think branded content is a big component of any content company's revenue stream, but the balance that you have to strike is it on brand, and where do you put it? We know for a fact that we don't, not that we don't, but we have to do a lot of analysis on how much control the advertiser wants in the formation of the content. The more control we have, the broader places we can put it, because we know it has our look and feel and authenticity, which is really important. The more control the advertiser has, the less authentic it usually is for our brand. So it's that kind of balance. So we think branded content is incredibly important. It's a necessary part of the business, and we want our advertisers to feel like they're a part of the ecosystem that we have here at Condé Nast. But it is those challenges of how much control, where the control is, and that determines the destination.
Hi, Elise Kantarsi, Bonnier Corporation. For your videos, both long and short format, are you doing all the production in-house yourself?
We are. We're doing our production. We have, when I started at Condé Nast Entertainment a couple months ago, I was blown away by the level of production and the scale that we have in-house. So yeah, it's all us.
Catherine, since you mentioned direct-to-consumer and the Allure box, I'm curious if you've seen any, if you can tell us anything about how video pushes e-commerce. For instance, affiliate links.
Yep.
In addition to your direct sales, is video a more effective driver of affiliate response and conversion?
I don't know if I can answer if it's a more effective driver. I think it definitely gives you more association with the products. Video can bring things to life. But then when you look at a company like Goop, which is a lot of text, they are selling a lot of product. So I feel like it's more about what people are trying to get. One, what is the price point on the product? How much explanation you need around the product, and what the audience is going to do with that product. So with the GQ Best Stuff box, we actually have video that accompanies the box. We don't need to do that with the beauty box from Allure. So it's not that the video is driving product. It's, if you're putting something out there that people want, it's going to drive them to take an action. And we can help with video to tell them what action to take, if that makes sense.
Catherine Friedrich, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me bring Sarah and our panel up because we're going to drill even more deeply into video across multiple brands. Those of you who have been in video for a while know, of course, that in many ways we've seen publishers have been sort of the Charlie Brown, and companies like YouTube and Facebook have been Lucy with a football, often offering very alluring propositions, at least temporary ones that usually get yanked away. We're in a new stage of video distribution. I think, as Catherine already mentioned, we're seeing multiple new channels emerge, like Instagram TV, like CTV, like OTT. So how has the game changed, and has the business model around video changed? Are we simply seeing more Lucys with more footballs? Are we really at a point where publishers can take advantage of these new distribution channels and make money off of them? To take up the lead here, we have our own Sarah Guaglione, who is a reporter who covers the publishing beat. For those of you who are following us on our Publisher Daily, Sarah is there daily, following all publishers. And if you're looking for coverage, she's the one to talk to. Sarah, take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to have this great panel up here to talk about video. So if we want to start by you guys introducing yourselves and telling us what you do.
I'm Prayesh Patel. I am the VP Business Development for Minute Media. We are a global technology company that owns and operates our own websites, but we also power technology for the websites as well.
Hi, I'm Jody Rones. I am Chief Revenue Officer for Thrillist as part of Group 9 Media. And with that, I work closely with our sales team and our brand team, kind of bringing the Thrillist brand to life for the sales organization and bringing what the market looks for back to the editorial team.
Hi, I'm Andy Weedland. I've been in digital media for over 20 years. I was at Yahoo, Huffington Post, and BuzzFeed. And I joined Wave Sports about 6 months ago as Chief Business Officer. Wave Sports is a sports network for young fans. We don't have any TV stations or URL or an app. It's 150 channels completely distributed across social channels.
Great. And so maybe you can tell us about, recently there's been this real push amongst publishers to invest more heavily into video. So if you could tell us if that was a recent move at your companies, a recent focus, and if so, what really pushed that focus?
Yeah, as a sports publisher, we've always been heavily involved in video. We're in that same bucket where we're competing with ESPN and Bleacher Report. So our main differentiator has to be, actual producing high quality video content to track, more consumption across our site, but also differentiate ourselves, from the advertiser's perspective. So we've invested heavily in terms of the production side of things, in terms of creating studios, having individuals go to events and so forth. So we've invested heavily in the curation process, but we've also invested in the technology side of things as well. Having all that premium content, we needed a good platform to actually scale and surface that video. So we've actually invested both on the production side of things, but also on the technology.
Yeah, so for Thrillist, we definitely started in the written space, email and then web, but we definitely started investing in video probably around 4 to 5 years ago. And then when we became part and brought Group 9 together, that was a company built in video. Our CEO would say, we dream in video, and I think the Thrillist brand was like, all right, we got to start dreaming a little more. And so we slowly embraced it. I think what's really interesting is that, while that was the biggest focus for the last few years, we're really starting to come back around and say it's important to be, within all different types of mediums. So while video is super important, we're also kind of putting a renewed focus on the written word as well.
I don't need to answer that, right? We can move on. Come on, Sarah. Let's bring it. Come on, bring it. Let's go.
Okay, well, let's talk about platforms. The focus of your video distribution. What are the platforms that you find are the most effective to reach your audience, as well as a good way for you to monetize video on those platforms?
I guess I'll start with that. We don't have a URL, so we're 100% distributed across Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook. And each month we get 2.5 billion views. So there is scale on social. The question is how you monetize it. I think Snap is doing a great job with the sort of shorter form. Advertisers always say, I need a 30-second video, but reality is on your phone, you're really going to watch a 30-second video. But Snap, with their original shows, is encouraging brands to create 6-second videos. And I think if you're a great brand, you can monetize and reach really interesting audiences in a very different way.
So I think for us, it's always been mobile. Mobile's been our core platform. When we started the whole video process 5 years ago, 90% of our audience came from mobile devices. So we've always had to adapt our technology to be able to, play out our content through a mobile experience. And back then, 5 years ago, there wasn't many video solutions out there that cater for a mobile-first experience. So, most of the video solutions were more desktop-focused. So we've had to actually adapt and build our own technology around that, which ultimately led to us kind of building out this model where other publishers can utilize the same, experience that we do as well.
I think for us, it isn't any one platform. I think each platform is a favorite of their core consumers. Just like in cable, some people were Time Warner subscribers and some people were Comcast subscribers. In social, some people are Instagram fans, more and more. Almost everybody's an Instagram fan, but some people are Facebook, some people are Snapchat, and I think it's important to be everywhere. As far as the monetization goes, that's a constant battle, I think. On Wednesday night, when, it's like, platforms aren't really welcome here, it's a fight between us, but it's frenemies because they're helping us get to our audience. But, at least for us, the power of becoming a big holding company that is one of the largest creators of content is, really an ability to get a seat at that table and continue to work with them. And I think we're seeing a big shift. It's definitely come a ton in the last 18 months in terms of monetization. So they're all really kind of trying to bring unique solutions that are beneficial for them, but hopefully a little bit beneficial for us too.
And Jody, so how do you balance between, how much you want to go into producing branded content versus the other monetization options there are on other platforms?
Yeah, I think that's really it's part about the monetization options the platforms give you in the editorial content. For a while, for a few years, it felt a lot like we had to have a 60-person editorial team just to build brand identity. That meant we could have a 60-person team to build branded content that we could actually make money on. That's not a sustainable business, and why the margin profiles of branded content businesses alone are no good. As we've started to work with the platforms and have a lot more revenue producing capabilities on the editorial side, either directly selling to advertisers, working through sponsorships, through brand integrations and product placement in editorial IP-based shows, that's allowed us to scale much more easily and have a lot more options. It doesn't mean that every time we actually want to make money, we have to spin something else up.
And Andy, what about you? Because your business model is pretty unique in the way that you own your own social channels, and so what? How is that successful for you guys? What are the platforms I think that really work?
Well, I think that's why I'm here. I'm trying to figure out how to be successful and learn from everybody. But I generally think that advertisers are bipolar, right? So like they want scale, they want Facebook, and they want YouTube. At the same time, I don't think anybody loves pre-roll, and I don't think anybody loves mid-roll. I think consumers, if we do it right, love branded content. And I think advertisers tend to be a little bit bipolar as well. They want scale, and they want the never been done before idea. So companies like Jody, I think, does the right thing. They create incredible branded content that they can distribute. But then you started this video alliance which gives advertisers scale. So I think that sort of combination, the yin and the yang of like really deep, integrated, beloved, branded content with a scalable solution is probably the best way to make money.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a hybrid. I think, two sides of it. The other thing is measurement. I mean, and unified measurement across the different platforms. It's just really hard to compare apples to oranges and be able to put any value on it. We got addicted to really high numbers on Facebook, and seeing, billions of views became a thing that everyone talked about. And, that's great, but billion of views of what is, definitely a big piece of it. And then you can look at other platforms that can provide way smaller amounts, but people are watching 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes of something, and it's like, how do you possibly try to compare those things? And it's really complicated. We, on the other side, UT's one alliance, but the other thing that we've done is we sat and helped form a global video measurement alliance with Tubular Labs as a way to try to put unified measurement across different platforms, because that's the key, is you have to be able to say, what does is one view on YouTube worth one view on Facebook, or 100 views on Facebook, or 0.5 views of Facebook? Like, you have to be able to start to identify what a view is across the board, because, like I said, consumers are everywhere. You have to reach consumers on all platforms. You can't, as a advertising brand, you can't say, I'm going to pick one platform and just hope I find the audience there. You have to be everywhere, but you have to be able to compare what you're doing.
Right, and if the focus is to be everywhere, how important is it to drive audiences back to your owned and operated sites, or is that not as important anymore because most audiences, it seems, are consuming video on social channels?
I'll start we basically built our business with the idea that we never want to drive people somewhere outside of where they are. It just doesn't work. It's a very expensive endeavor, and you don't really gain much from it. It's something nice to say. I would love if someone watching video on my owned and operated, the margin's a lot better on the ad I can sell there, but at the same point, it's not realistic. I mean, how annoying if you're sitting yourself, you're in an app, and all of a sudden you end up somewhere else. It's annoying. We have to take the user behavior first.
Have you noticed at this conference we use words like, we want to drive people this way, we want to capture this, we want to own this? Like, it's over, right? Like consumers are running the show, right? And like, you can't drive them, you can't force them, you can't capture them, you can't own them. You can delight them, you can inspire them, you can serve them, but I just feel like the old way of ad tech saying, we're going to change consumer behavior, I think it's just a fool's errand. I think that you can align with it and get engagement, but the idea of driving people back to where you want them to go, those days are over.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. I mean, we own and operate 5 brands, and just trying to bring back users to our sites is always challenging. We effectively operate audience extension. We do that really well on campaign deliveries and stuff like that, but I mean, the margins are when you bring users back to your own site. So it's always challenging to do that, and that's something that we're trying to figure out as well.
I think what Andy just said, is probably the most paramount importance is there's too many choices out there today. Consumers aren't going to take a choice you give them. They take the choice they want to make, and that goes for publishers, making sure you're where they are, and it goes for advertisers. You started earlier saying, a lot of places, a 6-second ad. That only works if a brand stands for something and is actually behind something. And can have consistent messaging across the board, and that's because they know that they got to, do what the consumer want. They can't just ask a consumer to fall in love with them just because they want them to love a product. They need to go and bring it to them.
Are you concerned about the power that puts in the hands of those platforms?
You don't want to get in a wrestling match with Zuckerberg?
No, thanks.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely scary, the power that they wield. And their desire, whether they're actually being audience first or not, and some of the stuff they do is definitely business first, and some of the stuff they do is audience first. And if you want to be an audience first brand, you're still at the beck and call of them. But at the same point, that's the world we live in, and you can't fight it. we're not going back to shopping in shopping malls, and we're not going back to people coming to your owned and operated sites. It's just not going to happen. So
Yeah, I think we're all concerned, right? We keep talking about this duopoly, eating our lunch and things like that. It's there. It's going to be there. I think the consortium, the alliance that you're talking about is an interesting way to do things. But I would encourage you to be a fair alternative. Like when I speak with clients, of course they're going to advertise on Facebook, and of course they're going to advertise on YouTube, but nobody really loves it, right? Nobody's dying for a mid-roll. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to come up with a better solution that aligns with consumer behavior, that gives advertisers a third option. I think that's the way to do it. Instead of slavishly imitating what they're doing, let's come up with something different.
Well, I might argue, though, I think the ad agencies love pre and mid-roll.
They love whatever's easier to put in a spreadsheet. That doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
No, but they would love the business model. I mean, I think that's the hardest thing right now is digital is different than cable, but all that advertisers want is you to replicate the cable business model and make it as turnkey in digital as possible. It's not, it won't happen exactly that way, but that doesn't mean that they're not pushing and saying, holding up, $1 billion of checks saying, if you can get me GRPs on YouTube, I would give them to you. And it's
but
that doesn't exist.
Just because a brand says, I need to put a 30-second spot on every young person's phone, I think it's our job to push back and say, that's a horrendously bad idea. I know you want that, but you don't need that, and that's not what the consumer wants, so let's just stop. I think we can do better.
I mean, I 100% agree we can do better. I think it's just really hard, especially talk about when you have YouTube and Facebook basically saying, well, we're going to figure out a way to give you a 30-second spot on their phones, and they're the powerhouses of it.
Andy, do we have the metrics to back it up when we make that argument?
So Steve's question is, do we have the metrics to back up the fact that consumers want shorter form video? I mean, look at pre-roll. Look at. They don't want the pre-roll and mid-roll. Has anybody ever not hit a skip ad button in their life? It's like that's the fastest a human hand can move is when the skip ad things comes on, right? Has anybody suffered through a 30-second mid-roll on Facebook to get to the next section of crappy content?
My point is that we often go to, publishers often are going to agencies claiming, you don't really want what you think that you want, but I often don't necessarily see the publishers back it up with actual research showing you can be more effective this way. We can use context more effectively, we can engage more effectively, and it will result in a better outcome for you. And I'm not sure that we have the research that often, or we put that research in front of them that shows them, and that's what they want.
Yeah, I think you're right. So we probably do need that research. I do know this is that brands always say they need a 30-second spot to get something done. But if you're a great brand, if you're a brand like Coca-Cola, and you do a 3-second title card with pouring Coke and red and bubbles, people will remember that. And so, look, attention spans are short. Why are you going to put a 30-second video in front of a 15-second piece of content? So it's just anachronistic. So yeah, we probably need the research to prove that. And maybe you're not going to pay full boat for a shorter ad, but clearly that's in the interest of consumers, and I think therefore in the interest of advertisers. But if there's research people here, you just got a job. Let's go figure this out.
I think the real answer is that it's probably not a finite answer one way or the other, and it's probably some sort of hybrid in the middle. I mean, look, the amount of content that is consumed by key consumers that you want to reach that doesn't have ad opportunities, that is either skippable completely, that is in an ad-free environment. Ads are optional for the consumers today. I mean, that's the bottom line. Like a good consumer today doesn't need ads and can kind of choose their way around them. So you have to be able to cut through the clutter as part of it. That said, being able, I think on a one-to-one, it's pretty easy to prove that the engagement is there on branded content, but it's on the scalability of that. And if branded content only works in the environment in which it feels native in, that environment is usually not that big, so you can't scale it. Then you're doing, 50 different custom products, and you see a lot of brands, and you can't blame them. And I think it's not ideal, but you have brands coming to me like, CMOs saying, I get what you're saying. I would love to do branded content in every place I want to reach consumers, but that's not feasible. That's a tripling, quadrupling, maybe 10xing my marketing org in order to do that. So I have to have a scalable solution to go along with the deep engagement. So I think the metrics there one-to-one, but it's really about the scale of it all.
Let me just pimp Jody's company for a minute. There's a guy at Now This News named Joseph Johnson, and he creates branded content. And it's not 6 seconds, it's 2, 3, 4 minutes. And it's beautiful. The stuff is so good, it'll make your CMO cry. It is great stuff. And he gets millions of views on this stuff. So does that scale? Well, going back to the thing about people want two different things. They want scale and they want never been done before beautiful work. And I think that in your case, you guys are offering both, and I think both are valuable.
I think most people in this room are familiar with the recent ad sales alliance that Group 9 has joined on. If you could tell us a little bit more about that, I think people would be really curious to hear your thoughts on how it's going.
Yeah.
Can we change the name to the Rebel Alliance? Because I think that'd be really cool.
Well, it's as of yet unnamed, so I'm happy to submit any name recommendations you have. I can only really say what's in the Wall Street Journal article, but it is, look, we heard from the advertising community, and this is what I'm saying. Like, we heard from the digital community that they want a scalable solution that is as close to the business model of cable television, but actually reaches the people they need to reach. I'm sitting in a room with the head of investment recently for a large holding company, and they're like, we can't buy 18 to 34-year-olds on television anymore. Yeah, you can have all these brands still say television exists, but they won't take our money. I mean, Cartoon Network wouldn't take $18 to 34-year-old $18.34 in the upfront this year. I mean, and that's Cartoon Network. Of all the brands you think would be able to do that. So they're gone. It's, you're not going back. TV's still valuable. You're still watching stuff on a television, but cable linear TV buying is not the same as it was, and it's only getting older and older. But at the same point, in an ideal world, I think we would say, well, the same thing, YouTube is channels. Why don't you plan YouTube buying the same way? Instead of calling YouTube with all your dollars, call the 10 channels that people are watching and do the same type of buy you did on cable. That's, it's the scalability there, especially for an agency and kind of on an upfront, isn't there on any one channel right now. So they're stuck going to the platforms, which only gives you audience and doesn't give you any contextualization and often gives you a lot of crap. Even Google Preferred gets you in the top 10% of YouTube. The 10% is pretty deep into the whole of YouTube. And so what we wanted to do is just kind of try to give a singular option for either large brands or large holding companies to come and say, we're going to band together as the 1% and say, here's an opportunity to really reach people that are creating premium. There was no brand safety concerns in television because if an advertiser didn't like what they were doing, they called the network and said, hey, we're giving you a lot of money. This show isn't what our values stand for. We're not going to put it in. And enough brands did that, it would go away. That isn't possible with a network, with a platform. You're never going to get a tech-based solution to curate content the same way. So you have to work with publishers. And so it's just about trying to provide back a scaled entity the same way.
Interesting. And Priyesh, you were telling me that Minute Media saw a need in the market for the platform that you guys also wanted, and so you built it yourself. So if you could tell us a little bit about that. I think that's
so 5 years ago when we started the whole video process, what I was mentioning before, there wasn't a mobile first type of experience. As a lot of the consumption and traffic is now mobile based, we had to kind of deliver and adapt to a solution that would work for our own sites, but also be able to kind of deploy all our content on a scalable fashion. So, as we started to kind of grow this product and working it and optimizing our own sites, other publishers would come up to us and say, hey, can we actually, can we utilize that product as well? So we started syndicating it out to, the USA Today sports team, Bonnier, all those type of publishers, and they were able to effectively, execute mobile across their, own channels as well pretty easily. And long story short, that's opened up a whole new model for us. So we've now become a kind of publisher tech operation as well, where we own and operate our own sites, but we build different technology solutions that other publishers can utilize as well.
And what's the next big focus for all of you in terms of distributing your video into new places? Is it OTT? Is it IGTV? Once they start to monetize, what's the focus coming up?
Before I answer that, I just want to sort of follow on what Jody said about this is like this incredible opportunity. We're here at the future. I think digital has always been scavengers. We got our original money when newspapers were tanking and we took their classified ads, and when direct mail tanked, we took their money, and performance marketing, we took their money. And all of a sudden, TV is tanking. Absolutely tanking. You cannot reach young people effectively with TV. And all of a sudden, digital can. And on your phones, you can. And so this is this huge opportunity because if you're a media buyer, you prefer video over everything else. So anyways, it's a huge opportunity. As going into the future, it just gives us more opportunity. So besides O&O and the platforms we have, OTT is going to be a massive opportunity. So let's not screw it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, any platform in which there's consumers is huge. I mean, we're looking on the largest side of things. We're extremely excited and kind of wowed by TikTok, and talk about trying to figure out a new way to reach consumers. When what you're watching is only 6 seconds.
That's where the young.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be able to put a 30-second spot in front of a TikTok, but we're seeing a ton of success. I mean, and you can't talk to a 13 or 14-year-old who doesn't use it all day long, and so you have to pay attention to these things. Twitch is another one that's just crazy. The engagement's going on. We actually just hired someone from Twitch, and he's taking us through a lot of the stuff, and it's incredible. And it's not just gaming anymore. Although we did a survey of across our we have a survey panel on digital panel, and so we surveyed over 10,000 people for men under 35. We asked, what is your favorite sport? And the number one answer was esports. I mean, I kind of want to fall down off the thing here, but you have to, again, it's audience first. If that's the number one sport for people under 35, we have to pay attention to it. And Twitch is background television today. I mean, I think, part of what I think people who are still linear TV people can't get away from and can't understand for cord cutters is, well, what about when I just put the news on in the background, or I put Sports Center on repeat for hours and hours and hours? It's background noise. It's weird in my house if the TV isn't on in some capacity. But Twitch gives that same phenomenon, and you're seeing people just watching Twitch for 5 hours in a row.
It's weird how quickly things move. So I've got kids, and beginning of the year it was Fortnite, and then it was Twitch, and now it's TikTok. And it's a beautiful thing. The friends get together. They don't put on the idiot box. They create content and try to get likes. And if they don't get 2,000 likes, they scrap it and they do it another thing again. So just when you think you're getting on top of it or being able to understand it, something is going to change. But I think in general, this macro trend is young people are not watching TV, or they're watching video, they're not watching TV. And then where are they going? How do you engage with them? How do you not interrupt them, but align with them, and then come up with products that delights them? So it's weird and scary, and like esports, I don't get, but it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, and the one thing I'd say is on the new platform side of things, and again, it doesn't even have to be the big ones like a TikTok and Twitch. I mean, we want to be anywhere. If Captivate wants to have content in elevators, and can prove there's a lot of people there, and there's a monetization opportunity, we're going to put our content there. But it's about monetization opportunities, and I think all the new platforms seem to be coming in with a much more advanced focus on an understanding for needing to provide monetization to the creators of content, publishers or individuals. But the monetization Twitch is providing to creators is actually phenomenal, and we've been super impressed with TikTok coming in and their ability. They got to learn from their predecessors too, so you see everybody, you learn from it, and so I think there's a bright horizon there on new platforms.
And Prayesh, what about for you guys? What's your next focus?
Yeah, so we're slightly different. I mean, we're not really focusing on off-platform activities. Our focus is still growing our mobile audience. But for us in particular, I think where we see a really good, strong foothold is acquisitions. So it's a really good time to actually start acquiring other publishers, and we're very aggressive on that front right now. So we're looking to kind of develop, our O&O brands. There's a couple of interesting acquisitions that we're actually closing in on. So it's just about kind of, evolving that side of our business. So that's our focus for the next sort of 2 years.
And to get their audience to
get the audience, yeah, to kind of build up that brand awareness, kind of buy and acquire more kind of premium websites, and kind of build that up.
How much time do we have left?
We should go to Q&A.
Okay, perfect. Any questions?
Thanks for that. That was great. Andy, I loved what you said about TV's dying, the dollar's got to go somewhere. My question is, so on TV I'm sorry, I'm Andres with BounceX. On TV there was scarcity, right? There was a limited number of media companies, and so the dollars flowed to a select few that were the beneficiaries of those dollars. On the social platforms, everybody's a media company, right? So those dollars are now being distributed among a much more fragmented landscape of media companies, including people like Kendall Jenner, right? So how do those dollars then translate, and how can you build a $100 million business or even a $1 billion business on the platforms when that money is being distributed to so many different places?
Thanks, Andre. It's a great question. I guess I'd answer business is hard. And like technology is, you're right, it's absolutely limitless and scalable, and the best ideas win. So I think that you need scale, you need ease of buying. I think that's one thing. I also think you need great creative and ideas and creating on-brand content that resonates with consumers. But no, we don't have, it's not the same guardrails that we used to have with television, where there's a certain number of cable channels and money had to flow in them, and then that was it. I think it's an ideas-based business, and it's also a scale business, and in combination, you can make money.
I do think that it's worth noting that scale on social, I think, was a overinflated, very fake, unlimited scale type conversation. I think if you start to look at really where there's scale in premium content that's actually engaged, I mean, if you think about Facebook, which I think everybody in the world, including Facebook today, hates the mid-roll product. Part of the reason they hate it, think about all the gazillion, probably trillion views they have, but you look at how many views got to the 1 minute mark where they could put an ad in, and the number dropped. All of a sudden there was scarcity in where you could put an ad in Facebook video. So, how many people that say they create all this great content actually have people watching long enough to get to a mid-roll break? And I think you start to say, oh, well, as the metrics and measurement get more sound, you'll start to have to weed through, and just because you got 3-second view isn't going to be enough to people who want to serve an ad there.
Sure. Hi, Josh Rubin with the Daily Dot. You say TV is dying. Don't tell that to Disney Plus. I mean, one business model is dying, but they've developed a new bottom of the funnel. Disney Plus's new bottom, they have a bottom of the funnel. It's theme parks. It's everything they're driving to. AT&T has a new bottom of the funnel. It's moving fiber. They can't sell their ad inventory on baseball. Well, at least they can toss in an AT&T fiber commercial that'll keep things, afloat for a little while. My question for you is, what is your bottom of the funnel?
What is our bottom of the funnel? I mean,
first, let me just say, I didn't say TV was dead. I said it's mostly dead. And I also think that mediums never really die. Like, we still have radio and we still have newspapers, we still have magazines. These things will last in perpetuity. But the crazy growth rates that we see are probably gone for TV, at least regular terrestrial or cable TV. And look, Disney's the smartest company in the world. They're figuring this out. They're proactively going out with a new product to reach young consumers. Like, they're doing the right thing. But I would just say, like, the olden days when it was super easy to reach an audience of 18 to 34-year-olds by throwing money at it on television that's mostly dead.
No, sure. And they will have an addressable and attributable audience to directly tie conversions to. I mean, the goal of marketing is to make more money out of it than you put into it. Yes. So what is the bottom of the funnel for a pure digital publisher at this point?
Well, I mean, I think, at this point, television is dead, and Disney is probably the best example of that. If you asked them if they were a television company, they would say, hell no. That's the last thing they want to be known as. And coming out of end of September, where you would typically have 20 shows premiering on ABC, and probably no one in this room can name more than 1 to 2 that's premiered on their network, but everybody can talk about Disney Plus and ESPN Plus and anything else you can put a plus behind to make it sound cooler. But for us, it's about
Google Plus. No,
sure.
That was a bad example.
Okay. Don't worry, we got Group 9 Plus coming out soon. But I think that I guess I'm trying to, in terms of bottom of the funnel, I'm not sure I'm totally understanding.
What does that mean, bottom of the funnel? I don't understand.
Yeah. Ultimately, what is the goal of this ad network in the video? The goal of the advertiser is to make more money off of you than they put into you. What is your goal?
Make more money off the advertiser than I spend on
knowing that Google and Facebook will always be able to do that better than you.
I think people want an alternative, right? I think they will spend on. Have you talked to an advertiser and says, "Oh my God, I absolutely love working with Google and Facebook"?
No, but it works.
Absolutely, it works, and it's not a zero-sum game. They will always be spent on for a very long time. I think our opportunity as independent publishers is to create interesting audiences and delightful ad experiences where we can gain a fair share of the pie. So that's our bottom line, is to engage and stoke young audiences and work with great brands to create content and ad products that consumers love.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube's an interesting one because they kind of, their offering is basically the same offering we have. It's a spot. But Facebook, I would argue Facebook is never going to compete with Austin's ability to build a brand. Nobody's ever said my brand is cool and has a great brand presence because of my efforts on Facebook. They've done lower funnel stuff, but you need both sides of the funnel to do that. I mean, I'm working with an advertiser this year that last year we did a huge program with. This year, they decided to focus only on bottom of the funnel. New CMO came in, cutting all branding. We're going to do only, acquisition. It's a bed-to-head business, and their costs this year have over doubled on the DR side because they cut off the top of the funnel, and that's just not. Those platforms aren't necessarily the place to do that. You still need to use people that are creating brand identity. By the way, it doesn't mean it's not Disney as part of that, but I think those consumer habits are changing, and just as we grew up on Disney content as kids, Dodo Kids is going to reach a new generation of consumers, and my kids are growing up watching YouTube videos and watching brands that create great content on it. My son, I hit the TV, I go to the cable box, and he immediately gets upset because he knows there's nothing he's going to want to watch. That means I'm turning on the television. But if we're on Netflix or YouTube, he knows it's his television.
This is going to have to be the beginning of a great roundtable that I can already see coming. Sarah, panel, thanks for kicking this idea off. Thank you so much. So let me ask Eric and Andrea to come up. So we've already asked the question today whether print media and legacy media really want to be cable networks. Now we're going to ask whether publishers really want to be agencies. We just sort of trashed agencies. This is a model that, in some sense, has been with us for a long time. Publishers have always offered some sort of branded media services direct to clients. But this model now of publishers starting to build their own full-fledged, full-service agencies internally is, of course, one of the ways where some publishers are turning for the next generation of revenue. And as we heard yesterday from Jim Spanfeller, part of what's going on and part of the future of publishing is going to be tied directly to how the current tumult in the agency world and the agency model finally plays out. So I have two newspaper brands who are both pursuing this full-service agency model internally, but coming at it from somewhat different directions. Eric Myers, those of you who have been here before recognize Eric. He's the president of Balo Media Group. Before that, he was at Cox Media Group, and he's been driving the generation of their internal agency. And also Andrea Rowan, who's the general manager and head of the agency called Accelerate, which is within the McClatchy Group. What I've asked both of them to do, because they're coming at this from somewhat different directions, is to start us off by presenting briefly what they're working on, what their internal agency looks like, and then we're going to compare and contrast how they're coming at it and the common and the different challenges that they're facing. So please welcome Eric, who's going to start us off by telling us about Balo's internal agency.
Good morning. So I think I'll start with what Balo is. Balo, not a huge brand, but a 180-year-old company. It's I'm new to Texas, been at Balo since March, but I did find that Texas does love Texas, and Balo Media Group and the Balo brand is actually the oldest running business in the state of Texas. That actually means something. But I think it's an interesting juxtaposition for the conversation today, because it is an old legacy newspaper brand. Got into the TV business pretty heavily, sold off television handsomely to Gannett, which formed Tegna, and so that's kind of Balo's background. So they've been around a long time. They've been deeply ingrained in media, and around that same time, I was pretty good friends with the executive team at Balo, and they started doing something which I thought was fairly interesting, and taking some of their investment, setting up an M&A arm, and buying small agencies. They believed that the future of journalism was not going to be able to be scaled by selling 300 by 250s are creating more impressions. They did not believe that the future of journalism was going to be supported solely by subscriptions, although they wanted to get heavily more into that digitized model, as well as the decent cash flow they got from print subscriptions. But they felt that they could get higher up the funnel in the advertising world, and so they started to purchase. I think that's fairly relevant to this overall engagement discussion of this conference, because I think you can only have so many ads on the site, right? You can only have so many ads in a newspaper. Obviously, that's a declining part of the business. But they believed that it's almost the counterpoint to Deloitte. As they got into our advertising world, we wanted to get more into the strategic world. And we wanted to use our intellectual property as a way to make cash and to support journalism. So we believe in engaging a deeper level. So instead of selling ads, teaching an advertising staff as an ultimate goal, that they no longer had to say yes right away, slow down, and get every part of the marketing budget. So what Bilo started to do was purchase not only on the ad shop side, so a traditional search agency. We purchased a brand called Speakeasy, which was native and SEO-focused lab. They were all startups. They were all very, very cool. But they were, without a doubt, selling products. So now we had a problem of 6 or 7 brands at Bilo Media Group, all very different human beings, all sitting under kind of a loose shell called Bilo & Company, and trying to go to market as one brand, of which they were not, and our clients were getting basically 7 different type of pitches from the same organization. So we created quite a mess, and we were product selling. And so as of 2 months ago, we made the hard decision to no longer set it up as a separate entity, but to take everything together and create one company. We don't know what it's called yet. We're going to call it Bilo & Company. We've actually set up a PMO, a project management office, next to my office, and we are interviewing clients, we're doing consumer research, and we are starting over again. What is our go-to-market? What are we? What are we going to talk about? What's our ultimate business model? And we're literally in the middle of it right now. I act as though it's a restart. We also are a significant cash flow already. And so we created a pretty big agency, but a bit of a mess. And we're in the middle of seeing what's next. One of the things that we did notice, though, and I played to it, is culture. And people talk about culture a lot, and I have a discussion with our chief people officer quite a bit, that culture is not video games on our floor to make it look like an agency, and it's not handing out balloons. That's not fixing us. Culture is really the field to grow the talent that we need to be in this new model. And so we've actually sought out an executive coach. He works with big brands in the country, and we're starting over with what is our vision, what is our go-to-market, and what is actually culture with a capital C that's going to make us sustainable in an evergreen model. And that's really where we're at now. We're focusing heavily on talent. And again, everybody says that, but it's a specific kind of unicorn that can play in this space that is willing to stop, not sell an ad, talk to clients at a deeper level, and turn us something into bigger and better.
Let me, just before I go to Andrea, just want to flesh out a little more detail. How many people are we talking about? And
about 200.
And how many agencies did you buy?
So some of them we started up as well, but if you look at all of our brands, it's about 7.
Okay. But some of this was also that you built.
Correct.
Right.
We actually have a SaaS marketing platform in there that we did build from scratch as well.
Did you centralize everybody physically now?
Not yet. We're in the middle of that.
But were most of these agencies Texan?
Most of them are Texan.
Right.
Also Boulder, Colorado, and then we just bought a full-service ad agency in Tulsa about 4 months ago.
Okay. Let's move on to Andrea in the way that she built this almost exclusively in-house at McClatchy.
Yep. All right. Andrea Rowan, head of the agency Accelerate. We're built within the McClatchy family. And it's been fun over the past couple of weeks as we talked about what our goals and the direction that we want to drive to. Obviously, we have very similar goals for our advertisers and our business and how we grow it, but came to it a little bit different. A little over 3 years ago, we needed a way for McClatchy to differentiate itself, but also to find different ad revenue. So we said, all right, great, here's an opportunity for us to find new and incremental dollars for the digital growth of McClatchy, and we have Accelerate. Started with 3 employees. I'll give you a preview of a little bit of the talent that sits within the agency, and then talk a little bit about what our footprint looks like real quick.
Accelerate's a national digital full-service agency. We're really catered towards our customers and clients and driving the best results.
I promise it's only like a minute.
We follow a process that really fits the understanding of what our clients' needs are.
It really starts with identifying and uncovering the advertiser's business goals.
And really understand what they're trying to accomplish and what we need to do to get them there.
It shows that we actually care. Instead of just calling you and trying to push a product on you, we want to show you that we really care.
So the define stage is one of my favorite stages. That starts with the sales teams understanding who our clients are.
It's not just send you on your way with some advertising and hope you're doing well. We want to keep improving you as a business.
And the marketing services team takes that information and builds it into a custom media plan for the client. Everything that we do is tailored to their custom goals.
Your Facebook, all that needs to send the same message, the same branding, to the clients and capture their attention. Some have wild and unique styles and some have very structured.
The deploy step, one of the biggest differentiators in my opinion.
We take from a big giant toolbox of all sorts of different types of tactics, from PPC, SEO, display.
We deploy Google AdWords and Bing Ad Center campaigns to really meet those objectives.
Being able to tell a story from that data coming in after launching, that's like one of the fun part of the job.
Analytics and reporting is the portion that really provides the evidence for success.
That's how we really understand whether what we're doing is working or not.
This is how the tactic is performing, and that's why we're investing in those tactics.
How many click-throughs, how many view-throughs, how many form fills, phone calls.
That's why you should optimize towards a particular tactic.
A lot of other agencies, it seems, kind of set it and forget it, and where we feel we go a step further is we're actually talking with the client, saying, yes, I brought you all these leads, but were they worth it? Gives them a good idea of what their return is on their investment. To help make sure the clients are getting what they need brings out a passion in partnership that really anybody at Accelerate has to have.
Okay, I shared that because it sounds very similar. You'll see a bunch of sizzle reels from everybody that says, this is what we're doing, this is how we reach people, we're doing a consultative sale, but actually doing that is very different than just saying that you're doing it. And I think for many years, McClatchy probably is guilty of saying that we were doing that, but we were really doing it. So what I'm grateful for the McClatchy company of the investment and building kind of from the ground up and investing in the services and the agency side is an opportunity really to find growth and be able to say that, put our money where our mouth is and say that we're actually doing what we say that we're doing with services. This is the just traditional McClatchy landscape, right, where we look and have looked for 162, going on 63 years now. 30 local news brands, some of them are bigger than others. Most are familiar with, Miami Herald and Sacramento Bee, some of our more flagship brands. But quickly, you've got 30 papers that are represented, but now you've got 39 states of where the agency actually has employees based in. So the first thing we did is said, we need to find talent. We need to find talent wherever we can find it, and we need to find the best talent that we can find. So we started with 3 employees a little over 3 years ago, as I mentioned, and the agency now and service organization exists of 250 employees. 75% of those employees are all new to McClatchy or the Accelerate family. So we've had a lot of acquisition in terms of talent and some challenges in terms of making sure that we're reaching the same people and we're telling a value proposition that they want to work with us on. It's not free pizza in the office. We have a foosball table. I'm not very good at foosball, I'll admit that. Maybe I could get better, but it's not having foosball table in there. It's not having great gourmet coffee. It's really at the culture and the heart of who we want to be and who we want to change and how we want to evolve McClatchy. And then always, I would say, just an example of kind of where we've grown or scaled. Again, 3 years ago, we would have come and said, hey, we have a couple of clients who are really large, and we think that we're bringing a great value proposition to them. Now we've got, I would say, measurable enough amount that we have a good seat at the table with our partners at Google and Facebook and are making conversations on campaigns that are bigger than political or bigger than real estate and obits and things that even Nick mentioned yesterday. Like, I can't believe we're going to have a conversation on obits still. And that is, I guess, a big transition into who we are and the people that we hire. I mentioned we've had to hire a whole lot of folks into an agency and explain the passion of who we are and what we provide to our advertisers. The people that we have really make the difference. We have platforms we can utilize and work on, but growing from the pain points of learning to scale, that's one of the biggest ones. How do you have a vision for what you want to build, but not be able to instantly provide that to a business that has revenue objectives and needs to meet goals immediately? The most recent change that we made within Accelerate, we had some great coaching and some help within restructuring our revenue organization, but we didn't necessarily structure our services and fulfillment organization around it. So we said, okay, we've got a lot of growth and success in our large advertisers. Can we do the same thing with our SMB segment? We built SMB into Accelerate. So when we first started, the vision of the company was how do we help our largest digital advertisers grow, find new and incremental ways to do that. Just recently, we brought in kind of our SMB segment to follow the same principles and scale that group. We have a creative lab that was grown within the McClatchy walls as well, our branded content studio. That was integrated into the agency a couple months ago with the same objective. How do we just get more creative, tie it to the distribution, and make a better collective experience for our clients? And finally, client success. Yesterday, we talked a lot about what it looks like to to slow down churn and make sure that we're really focused on renewal and increase. So the client success portion of the organization has been integrated into the agency. So now it's one collective feel. When you engage with Accelerate, you have opportunities to work with a strategic consultant at the very beginning to do what's right for our clients and the business, but then also make sure that the fulfillment and client success reporting is all tied in under one holistic umbrella. Previously, it was very siloed.
You obviously, both of you made different branding decisions. I didn't see McClatchy mentioned in your sizzle reel at all, and yet BALO seems to be baked in. What was behind those decisions? Why not go the route of Accelerate and have a separate branding that sort of underscores the independence of the agency?
Yeah, a lot of it, we kind of joke about it. If we come up with another name, then somebody's getting fired because we had 7 names already. And so we really just kind of sat back and said, BALO doesn't necessarily mean a ton as a brand, but it also, it can be built as a brand. It's kind of the determination. So for those people that do know BALO, that are big Texas businesses that respect that, so there's positive branding there. For everyone else that doesn't know it, we figure we can just push behind it. And quite frankly, having 7 brands still in accounting forms, on spreadsheets, was killing us. And it was creating a schizophrenia that we decided, let's take a deep breath and let's build something.
How about
Well, we had 30 brands, so what's one more, right?
Okay.
31 might be. Really, I think the approach was holistic in that you've got 30 very fiercely independent markets and fiercely independent market brands. What is going to be that unifying model that we use for our digital services? But I also think part of it was we opened markets that are in not our traditional areas. So we have offices where we've tried, some successfully, some not, but we've got a team in Atlanta, for example, where we picked the market, we found where we thought there was great opportunity. McClatchy means nothing to anyone in Atlanta. I'm actually from Denver. There's not a McClatchy property that's in Denver. So what we tried to do is not limit ourselves to the area where we could throw a newspaper. And to us, that means we've got to be able to stand on our own without the use of owned and operated and without the use of some of the traditional aids that we've gotten as a business for the past 100+ years.
Are you genuine? Are both of you genuinely media agnostic in terms of are you buying media on competitors' platforms for your clients?
We are.
And how do those? Are you?
Absolutely. I mean, our media strategists, when we first trained them, none of them had a clue about our owned and operated properties and the value that the owned and operated drove in those media plans. They were putting media plans back into the hands of our sellers. We were asking them then to maybe add in a little bit of our property information onto it. We didn't have a problem monetizing and selling our owned and operated inventory. It was a opportunity for us to find new and incremental digital dollars. That's not going to come from transitioning owned and operated or packaging and bundling that in.
Okay, well then that begs the question of how are you organizing this within the rest of your organization? Do you have the same people selling this product as selling the owned and operated products? That seems like an immediate conflict if you've got the same people doing it.
As of today, it completely is. So I don't know if it's going to be the same people. It's going to be the same headcount. And so we think actually one of our big, you ask yourself the question, where do we have a right to win here? We're not going to be we're not going to be an agency that's going to go after massive Fortune 500 or even Fortune, or 500 plus is where we're going to go, right? We don't think we want to compete. Obviously, we don't have a right to win in that space. Where we do think we have a right to win is around content. We think we have a right to win around certain areas that we think we are strategically aligned to be better than most, and our sellers can do that. One of the things, and to finish my point, is that we have a right to win because we have 100 sellers. And if you know the agency space at all, most agencies would die to have 5 sellers. And so we can be a little bit more active and not just a passive RFP shop. And so we think that's a big positive to us.
And Andrea, let me have you answer that question before I come back.
Right now it is.
Yeah.
We have some dedicated sellers. So like I mentioned, the Accelerate brand has its own sellers that are outside of our McClatchy newspaper footprint, so they don't use the owned and operated piece. But in the McClatchy footprint, we do have a combined sales team where they're doing both. And if you're doing what's right for the client at the end of the day and trying to meet those goals and making sure that the proposal that's in front of them is based on the metrics that they want to judge their business by, the conversions that they're looking for, and really the e-commerce trail and helping build that consumer journey, then there is a place in some of those, in some of that area for what our owned and operated inventory is, and it builds a valuable value proposition. But the more products that our clients have in their portfolio with us, the stickier they are, and that's the goal. Like CPA and the cost per acquisition for these clients becomes a bear to the business, and the goal is to get them in the door and then keep them as long as we can. So the more products we have and the more that we can do for them, the better off we're all going to be.
Could you follow up on Eric's point? Where do you feel you have a right to win? Where do you want to play, and where don't you think you should be playing?
It's in a similar space. It's in a similar. It's maybe you've outgrown your SMB marketing plan, and now you're maybe the big M in SMB, but you've outgrown your middle segment, and you're starting to grow. You need better metrics, better tracking. You need a partner that's going to be able to help put the integrated plan together. So maybe not the one truck plumber, but again, maybe not Fortune 500.
I have to warn you, I've been asking this question of publishers for at least 15 years, and I always get a bad and mealy-mouthed answer, so be forewarned. You are competing with agencies who are also your clients. How does that work? How do those conversations work? How do you make sure that how do you navigate the problem of being out there in the field, often competing with agencies and at the same time courting their business?
We're currently trying to teach nuance. And so I think a lot of people will say, oh, they're our partners, they're okay with us. They're not. And so one of the biggest shops in Dallas that's a national agency and handles some pretty sexy brands, the woman that's been leading media there for 20 years had lunch with me the other day and just said, just make sure no one walks in our office and mentions anything you do outside of your owned and operated products. I said, check. And that was the end of the lunch, basically. So we have to be very cautious with that. That being said, we also feel we can play in a white label space where we are better. We're better at creating content than many agencies that we work with. And so some of them are using us as their white label back.
We're kind of in the same frame of mind. You turn them into your clients, right? What does the white label opportunity look like if they're not ready or willing to invest? I think many have become wise to the fact that this isn't an easy thing to do, and it's not something that they can hire 5 people in a back shop or an office to try and help make sure that they have the digital expertise that it takes to move these clients forward and meet people's expectations. So the more and more the opportunities are coming up to partner and to make sure that those swim lanes are defined. But we're going to more RFP pitches combined. We're going into areas where maybe we don't feel like we've got the bandwidth. I don't have a whole team working on RFP proposals, but we do have agencies that we partner with that do, and they don't have the digital backbone, so we're going to those RFPs and we're winning together.
Are these programs, well, actually, let me differentiate the two approaches. What has been the key challenge in mainly building this through acquisition?
That individual brands of young startup mentality people staying incredibly siloed longer than I would have expected them to. And so we really have to blow that up right now.
And you're also getting people who are not only agency people, but they're in agency contexts, and you're bringing them into a media company.
And they're actually scared to death to be part of a media company.
Why?
And so, well, because media people, media sellers are the C- students' revenge in their eyes. And so, so there's that interesting context in the office that, I tell the media team, just realize that you're the unintelligent part, and the agency has to be told how smart they are all the time. And so we joke about it, and both sides joke about it the same way, but it's fairly real and palatable.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I spend half of my life on the phone with agency executives, and I know exactly what you mean. If you tell them how smart they are, they love it. Andrea, what has been the biggest challenge? What has been the biggest challenge? Yeah, I know.
I love all those agency
people. Andrea, what has been the biggest challenge of doing it internally and building?
The biggest internal challenge is, look, we know what our true north is, and we've known what our true north has been from the day that we started working within the business. And for the majority of the people who have joined us from outside, they're still with us, and it's great to keep that employee continuity and client continuity too. But scale is really difficult. And knowing that you can't have exactly what you want tomorrow, or can't provide to your executive team exactly what you're trying to build tomorrow, can sometimes be difficult. We've had, executive turnover. We started Accelerate under one CEO, and then now have a great CEO that supports the business vision. We had strategic sales leadership that changed over as well. And so there are many points when I look back, even just over the past 3 years, where there are big opportunities for everything that we've worked really hard for to kind of erode or crumble. So I think the biggest piece of it is scale. People start to believe in what we're doing, and we get a lot of clients on board, and our sellers are starting to move forward. And then we need to hustle to make sure that we can fulfill and make sure we've got the next thing, and that we're building to that early on. It's that's a little more difficult when it's the build, buy, or purchase path.
I want to open this up to questions. One quick final question from me is, are these programs, are these simply reshuffling the revenue deck, or are you able to prove out that you're actually growing the pie? Is this simply another way of retrieving revenue that you're losing elsewhere, or are you actually growing revenue?
When we started Accelerate, we've been our own independent opportunity and our own business base, our own OCF numbers, all of that to build. The agency was created to drive new and incremental dollars to the business. And if we're not doing that, then we're an expense to the business. So making sure that we keep the profitability lines moving, but the expense lines, and watching that, we don't have, I don't know, it's a luxury we don't have to not be able to make sure that we're driving new and incremental business to the business.
Yeah, so they've grown into a significant 8-digit number. It's real cash, but it's still just replacing lost revenues right now. And so we're trying to put together a 2-3-year plan from today where that finally bumps to the other direction.
Any questions? Yep, back here.
Hold on. Sorry. Let us know who you are, where you're from.
Scotty Reese from A Girl's Guide to Cars. We function as an agency too. We're a media company, and our primary revenue source is the agency work that we do, or the marketing work that we do. So I'm curious how important the content is on your media properties, and how that aligns with the marketing work that you do. Is that really important, or is that operate separately from the agency?
It's pretty separate for us right now. And so, but when I say we have a right to win, it's regionally, and we're much smaller than we used to be from a national footprint. But if they are a business in North Texas that cares about North Texas, then that content does matter quite a bit. but for about 90% of that 8 digits that I was speaking of that's in that digital agency marketing services world, it doesn't matter at all.
I don't want to say the same part of it, but very similar. Separate, but then trying to find the revenue streams to bring it together.
One last one.
Hey, Mike Brooks from Weatherbug. What did you guys do to improve culture? You talked about it's not foosball, it's not pizza. We all have a lot of similar dynamics going on within our business. What did you do that was effective to kind of keep the cohesion together?
To be determined for us right now, quite frankly. I mean, we're trying to identify that culture can be performance-based, that culture can be that we are going to be a full-service marketing organization, but we're going to also be willing to walk away from clients and admit that we're not going to be great at everything. We're going to try not to spread the peanut butter too thin. And so those are some of the culture elements we're coming up with right now, so that it's not just about the fact that we do have scooters that you can ride around the building, which we do, and it is fun, but that's not a culture, right?
Eric, Andrea, thank you so much.
Thanks.
We want to welcome up one of our valued and long-running sponsors for about 10-minute message from one of our sponsors who will also be sponsoring our coffee break coming up. And he'll be talking about bring harmony to your video strategy. And this is Anthony Gonzalez, who is the VP and Head of Publisher Development at Kinetics. Please welcome Anthony.
Thank you very much. Good morning. And as Steve said, this will be a quick 10 minutes. I know everyone wants to get changed and ready out to ACL. So we were talking a lot the last 2 days about engagement. Obviously, you've heard a lot today that video is one of the most engaging forms of content that publishers and brands can put out. So why isn't it at scale across your O&Os? There's a lot of challenges that come with this, and in the next couple of minutes we'll cover it, but really kind of talking about how to bring harmony to your video strategy. Three quick stats to kind of set the stage. The first came out in Forbes that the average user is spending 88% more time on websites with video. I'm sure it's not surprising to anyone here that that number is bigger, but the fact that it was that high I thought was interesting to bring up. The next 2 numbers come from studies that we did in the wild. The first is, 46% of Gen Z is watching at least an hour of publisher content. Important to note that this removes all OTT, CTV content. So this is pure content that you guys are creating that they're engaging with. And among Gen Z and millennials, 30% would actually engage more with content if you had interactive features in them. We'll talk a little bit about how you can do that, but it speaks to a lot of what we've already heard today, right? People want it. It's how do you get it out there and deliver it, execute appropriately. But there's challenges, right? The first one, which has been brought up a lot, is like the worst kept secret that video can be very expensive, right? There's a lot of things in that chain to create a profitable video business. You've got the content creation. You've got technology aspects like the video player and the ad server. You've got resources between editorial, product, and the people in this room, right, on the direct and programmatic side. You need to be able to get enough demand and fill so that you're able to deliver back on the business. And 33% of Gen Z would actually watch more video if it fit their screens better. So if you start taking the time to reformat and verticalize that content, that obviously accelerates kind of costs there. You've created the content, you've gotten it out there. What we tend to see for publishers that are creating their own video content and leveraging a pure OVP type solution for an online video platform, that content probably lives on 30 to 40% of their pages, right? It's an editorial decision that that video is very specific to that article. But how do you work with all those assets that you created, whether you're a small publisher or like Condé Nast that said they create over 4,000 videos a year? How do you bring that back out? And users are asking for that help, right? About 40% say they would watch more, and they're looking for more suggestions on what new videos from you to watch when they're already engaged with it. So how do we take all these challenges and all the opportunity, because everyone here knows what the real revenue opportunity is? here's a couple of things that we kind of do for publishers and how we look at it. What we've done is essentially create a full stack player solution that we provide to publishers for free, right? So they get access to a lightweight, fast video player, a video CMS, a built-in ad server, as well as our demand, both direct and our programmatic partnerships to help complement their direct and in-house programmatic efforts, right? So working together, you're able to kind of reclaim a lot of the cost within the video process that your teams can use numerous ways, right? You can pump that right back into the content creation costs. I'm sure there's things that your product teams would like that are on their queue that cost additional funds that you can reallocate already budgeted items. And then even on the programmatic and direct teams, right, there's always additional resources that can be put behind to make sure that you're bringing in the highest dollars. The next is resurface. We talked about how users are looking for recommendations from you on what other content to engage with. This is just one way in which you can do this. This is an add-on to our kind of player. This is our galleries experience. And basically what this is we're suggesting videos below the main player. And we're doing this in a way that not only helps increase engagement and additional views, but we've all seen sites that are doing autoplay sound on everywhere. It's not necessarily the greatest user experience, so most people have defaulted to kind of autoplay sound off, which is great for scale and dollars. But there are opportunities, both direct when you're dealing with brands and agencies where they're asking for that sound on inventory. When users engage with those suggested videos, it plays right in that unit, and because it's been user initiated, it's enabled to be sound on. So it gives you a way to kind of expand the available inventory on your site while still maintaining that kind of user trust and good experience. The next is Renew. So outside of what we're doing for publishers on a main player solution, we also have experiences that help drive video supply at scale and reallocate additional assets that you already have, whether that's articles or videos where we can kind of cut them up into 6-7 second previews and deliver it in kind of a carousel fashion. Whether the user clicks on the image, the title, or the reader watch more, we're going to drive that user deeper into your site, increasing that engagement and those views and page views. But at the same time, this is something, especially for publishers that don't have thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of content, get video supply on their pages in a really clean way without kind of showing third-party assets. The last, before I kind of wrap up here, is reformatting. We talked about how users are looking for video to be kind of fit better on their phone and that experience. And while you can't necessarily go up against some of the platforms that were discussed earlier today, what you can do is be smart about the time and effort that has already been put into place to create that content for those platforms and bring them back to your O&O. So by kind of using our stories experience, which again, you can leverage your articles, your videos. You can add in those interactive elements that users are asking for, like polls and quizzes and emojis. We see great engagement with this, with users swiping back and forth on their phone and working with publishers to make sure that the right content's in there so it delivers the full click-through. But another thing you can do here is you probably already got teams that are creating for Snapchat and Instagram. You're probably not using those platform software to do it. You already own the assets. So why not repurpose that, actually sell ads the way that you want to against that content? And then while you can't, it was talked about in the panel today, right? You can't force users to go one way or the other. They're going to consume content where they want it. If you do provide the experiences that they enjoy, I think you can influence them coming more to you directly. And this is something that you guys can control. That's all I got. Basically how to bring content and revenue together, make sure that you're able to scale this out. A lot of our partners are here and have seen the revenue opportunity. So looking forward to the opportunity to catch up with all you guys later, but thanks for the time.